was it 27 now? It's
27.
getting along. Yeah. And tonight we have a very, very special guest. Really thrilled to have Ken Duncan with us. And he's going to talk to us about his new book and a few of the stories and projects that he's involved in. So it should be a really fantastic evening to spend with Ken. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask them in the chat, both on YouTube and on Zoom. You have anything further to add, Paul?
Well, I mean, just to put the context on Ken for people that may not be more aware, he's easily one of the most prolific and iconic figures in the Australian industry and has been for a long, long time, many decades. And he has an Order of Australian Medal in recognition of his contribution to the wider community and arts. And one of his projects tonight is going to really attest to that from an Indigenous perspective. But he's also a phenomenal publisher. I think he's been involved in up to 70 different books over his career in one form or another, and probably has the largest collection of limited edition works in this country's ever seen. And there's probably more of his works in different countries around the planet than anybody that's come before and maybe even after. Like he hit a pioneering realm in panoramic photography in particular, and has been using his passion and his vibrancy and his commitment to craft for so long now that he's someone that all of the community looks up to, and we're very very blessed to have him on the show tonight. So thank you, Ken.
Yeah, thanks very much.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, without further ado, we might head in, get you to share your screen and launch into the presentation.
Oh, here we go. Let's see what we've got here. This is where it'd be good to have Danny here.
Tech support.
Yeah.
Just the green share screen and then.
Yep, I've done that. Desktop one. Let's see what we've got here. Desktop two.
There we go.
Did that come on?
Beautiful.
Yeah,
right
on the money, Ken. Right on the money.
Guys, but that's okay. Oh, there you can see down the side. So I'll just play the screen.
Yep.
So Ken, this project's decades in the making, I gather.
Well, look, interesting. The Walk a While, the new book we put out is a wildlife book. Now, I've always had a fascination with wildlife. Look, I'm a landscape photographer. And, I don't claim to be a wildlife photographer as such. I do love wildlife, but I'm more about also shooting wildlife in location. So I like to, because a lot of wildlife photography I find is just so focused on an animal that it's not incorporating everything. But, and I've been mainly shooting for prints and using large format cameras and trying to shoot for limited edition prints. And so over the years, people have been saying, Ken, why don't you put out a book on wildlife photography? And I've been, And finally, my wife, or anyone who's got a wife or opposite a husband, she kept hassling me saying, Ken, you got to do a wildlife book. And it just happened when we were thinking of doing it, along came COVID. And, and I thought, well, let's do the book. I'm going to have plenty of time to go through all the images. And I really hadn't been through a lot of my wildlife images. So it was like I went on safari for 2 months. I went in and people were saying, why are you doing a book? It's COVID. The world's going to end. I don't know, all this sort of negativity. And I said, listen, mate, I'd rather go out, having a go than sitting around worrying and being anxious about stuff. Look, you got to have a go. So we've had a go. And it had its own issues because knowing that I couldn't go on press into China, I really had to understand color management. And it's something I do understand, color management, because I wouldn't be on the press. So we did it through Creative for Life. We worked and made sure we had all our images really well profiled. And unfortunately, a lot of photographers don't spend that time profiling their work. So it comes a lucky dip what they get back. But let's have a look at a few shots. So that's the cover. And so for me, look, I'm a Christian. I'm very much, this is something that I love. It's since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, been understood from what has been made, so that people without excuse. Now, look, for me, that's what I believe there's a creator. I don't care what other people believe. They are quite welcome to their beliefs. They can believe whatever, but there's something out there that is very bigger than us. And that's all I'm, wanting to experience. And I believe that's like the fourth dimension. That's that magic that you can just start to connect to it. And look, I've got to tell you, I'm still definitely a work in progress. But look at that scene. Like, that's when I was over with Ignacio, over in Patagonia. And what happened here, we had a beautiful sunrise as Toros de Pina National Park. We had a beautiful sunrise. We had other people with us. And then everybody thought, wow, that's it. We've got the shot. And they all took off back to the bus. And, I thought, no, I think we should wait. Something else could happen. And so when this finally happened, I was the only one there. And so it went into a even more explosive sunrise. And, how can you not look at something like that and believe there's something bigger than us? So that's just me, And for me, I consider myself an average photographer with a great God. And that's not false humility. It's just often, if I was going to employ a photographer, I'd employ someone much more clever than me. But it's just, I don't know, I'll get lucky. I don't know, but God looks after me. So I very much believe in there's something going on. And I love exploring that spiritual aspect of life and of the journey. Whereas a lot of photographers, they just want to know f-stops or, camera types and look, you can have all that, but the magic in a photo is not necessarily the technicality. It's capturing that spirit of a moment.
Ken, there's a great quote that often I refer back to in my life and in my own work, and it's related to that spiritual aspect of wild places and the natural world. And it's called, I can't remember who made it, but it's called "Spirit Stand Still for the Photographer It Is Chosen." Yeah. And it's something I've reflected on a long time. And some people even reflect on some of the qualities of my own work, that it has a certain spiritual nature to it. And I think it's just deeper connection and very genuine presence and a real appreciation and not taking for granted for the aspects of the world that are wild and precious, that we as photographers can be the voice for.
Well, I think, God's trying to get our attention, but the trouble is the only thing blocking the light is our own shadow. We're so in the way, we're so in control that we can't really sense what's happening. And, we're traveling on a planet at 108,000 kilometers per hour, hurtling through space and rotating at about 1,800 kilometers per hour. And here's a little human being photographer saying, I'm in control. Like, get a grip. You'd need it if the planet stopped. But anyhow, so I really like, when I started shooting wildlife, I wanted to shoot wildlife differently. So I used the Linhof when I first started. So a very wide camera. And I wanted to shoot wildlife with the Linhof. Now, as you know, they're very wide cameras. So I had to get particularly close to this elephant. And we're in Zimbabwe on the Zambezi River. And I was there with this guy who's like the Steve Irwin of Africa. It's always good to be with someone who really knows what they're doing when it comes to wildlife, not just rock up and have a go. Anyhow, this big bull elephant came storming through our camp, and it went down into the river and started, swimming out to this grass island. And my guide said, look, here's our chance. We can get him out on the grass island. We should be able to get close. So we go out there and we get out to the grass island, and we're sneaking up as much as we can. And he said to me, whatever happens if this elephant charges, don't run. And I'm going, okay, we don't run, fair enough. And so I got within about 30 foot of him to get him that size in the shot. And I was sitting there with the camera going, film days. And this little elephant sort of paying me attention. And then he started waving his ear a little bit. And I thought, oh, he's saying hello, And
not quite.
They forgot to tell me about it. If they start waving their ears, that's generally a sign that they're unsettled and they may charge. And then I'd sort of thought, well, it's an elephant. It's very big. It'll take a while for it to get revved up to get charging. But that is not the case. Elephants can just explode, because the next minute it just exploded at me. It was like, and I had a 35 mil camera there, and I thought, well, if I'm going to die, I might as well photograph it. So I'm clicking like this madly. The last frames, I should have put them up here, because the last frames are all blue sky, because I thought, that's it. The last thing I saw was a hat floating towards the elephant. And and then the elephant just goes, whoa, right in front of me, like only feet away from me. Got all this grass stuff over me and bad breath and all this sort of stuff. And like I wasn't moving. I was like, I was just like, whoa. And then all of a sudden it stopped and it just started walking back. And I looked over at my guide and I said, "You just threw a hat at an elephant." He said, "Yeah, well, usually that works." And I thought, "Usually? Like, hello?" And he said, "Well, actually, once the elephant ate the hat and I had to spend a whole day chasing him to get the hat back." And that's the real story. Actually, it was the Tilly hat, and they always said they're indestructible hats. And so this guy spent a day tracking an elephant to get a hat back, and it came back a few shades later. But the good news is now he's sponsored by Tilly Hats. So that was the story, shirting first. So all of a sudden, then I decided I'd try lines. And so here I'm shooting lines, and I had to get on the ground to be on this shot. And the guide's there with me saying, watching everything. All of a sudden, that front line turns and looks at me, and I looked at his eyes and thought, that is not a good look. And the guy grabbed me and pulled me in the car and the camera, and we took off, and this line starts leaping after the car. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm going to die doing landscape photography with a Linhof. And then I tried 3 rhinos, and I ended up getting chased around a car. You know, I was running around because they couldn't turn quickly. And then finally they dragged me in the car, and I thought, after that, I've got to think about another sort of camera. So that's when I started thinking I still want to do large format. So I thought, well, what will I do? And at that time, phase 1 were out, but they didn't have long enough lenses. So I was able to get a 500 millimeter f4.5 lens, a Mamiya lens out of New York. And it was just the most amazing lens. But the trouble is, when I started shooting with that, it was the most frustrating thing in my life as a photographer. Because when you were focusing, it was doing what they call back focusing, or you'd focus it and it looked okay, but you'd actually have to tweak it back a little bit to compensate because the focus screen wasn't perfectly in line with the back or something. And so you had that to deal with. And it was manual focus, no image stabilization, so you had to have serious tripods. And look, I was missing shots left, right, and center with this thing, thinking, what, I'm going to give up, you know. And then my wife, she's just got her little Lumix, you know, camera, and she's nailing everything, you know, on automatic, and showing me the photo saying, "Is this okay, dear?" And I went, "Yeah." Anyhow.
Oh, no.
So, and I had my daughter on the other side showing me this, and I thought, and then finally this day I got this one. And when you see this blowing up, like I can do huge prints on this, and you see every bit of detail in its eyes, its veins. And, you know, I thought, okay, I get it. It's going to be really hard, but if I can shoot with this camera, I'm going to get something that most people can't get. So that's where the journey started. And you could get a little bit further back with the 300, a 500 is only equivalent to a 300 on a phase 1. So then this is a shot that's probably one of our fastest selling prints right now. Now this is shot, again, was shot with a phase 1, but stitched. Now I love stitching. So a lot of people, I stitch out of balloons, I stitch out of helicopters. And, you know, stitching is a great way to get huge files. So this one here, I think it's about 3.5 gig file. So I could do a 7-meter print of that, and you'll see the eyebrows on the giraffe. So now that shot, you know, you don't just, that shot is another example of where I reckon God looks after me. You know, like the guide asked me, he said, "Ken, where do you want to go on this particular day?" And I said, "I want to go back to this waterhole where I'd seen a giraffe before, just one." And he said, "Well, you're not necessarily going to see anything there." And I said, "Oh, well, you know, let's just see what happens." And I went there with another mate of mine, and we go there in the dark because you can't sneak up on giraffes like that. You had to be there and still waiting. And as the sunrise starts coming up, there's nothing there. And I think, and the guy says, "No, it doesn't look like we're going to get anything today." I said, "Oh, well, you know, we've got nothing better to do. Let's just sit down and wait." And so we're waiting. And then all of a sudden we see a giraffe coming off in the distance, and they start coming towards, and the guy saying, "Oh, wow, okay, keep quiet." Now, my friend had a cold at the time, and anyhow, so they're coming closer, and I'm telling my friend now, just wait, we've got to wait for the right moment. And just as soon as they started to settle, he goes, "Achoo!"
Oh no.
They all just took off, and the guide said, "That's it, they won't come back. They've been scared, they're going to head for another waterhole." And I just yelled out, God, help us, please. We've been waiting, God, give us a break. All of a sudden, no kidding, they turned around and they all started coming back. And the guy just looked at me and said, I've never seen that. He said, and okay, call it chance, call it whatever you want. But they returned. And I said to my friend, you cough this time, you die.
You're out of the car.
Whatever. Anyhow, so we waited and I said, just wait for the right moment. And I just waited for the right moment. I went bam, 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 and stitched it on the face. And then all of a sudden those zebras messed up and everything took off. But, after that, the guide says, where do you want to go now? And I said, listen, mate, I just want to go back to the lodge. I just want to see if I pulled that off or not, because if I pulled it off, there's nothing else I'm going to shoot that's better than that. So
how many frames?
I think
is it taken on? 5
frames.
5, yeah.
Yeah.
And is that a hidden giraffe there too? Like there's.
Yeah, that's what's really good. That's the reveal, as Ignacio would say. That's the reveal. Yeah, there's another one just waiting for him. It's his a junior giraffe. Well, it's a baby giraffe.
Ah, yeah, I see it now. It took me a little while.
There's one in the middle. It's got more sets of legs than it should have.
Yeah, that's right. When you see an 8-legged giraffe, you got issues. So, and
they're
there's
very they look very awkward when they're picking too, don't they?
Gimbal with that long lens?
I actually use I used gimbals before, and I've used gimbals, but I actually use a fluid head. I find a fluid head better, and I get my camera out of the car. Don't get your camera in the car. Get your tripod legs on the ground, and so you can get real stability. And so I find I've tried them all. The gimbals are okay, but I actually like the fluid head. And then
probably depends. You want to be running around with rhinos around the car, or you're trying to figure out how to get back in.
I know. Well, it's fun. But that's a stitch. So, you can do. I've done amazing stitches with moving animals, but always when you're doing stitchings, make sure you've got separation points. But rather than just shooting elephants, you got elephants, Kilimanjaro, the whole scene. It's more than just a landscape. And here's another one that now. Another thing that I often do is do multiple level focusing. I've done this for years because especially shooting long lenses, you're not going to get all 3 sets of eyes perfectly focused. So what I'll do is I'll shoot one, if I've got time, I'll shoot 1, 2, the 3 different focus levels so that I've got all cats perfectly sharp. And so this one was another example. Like I was in Dandigarh National Park in India and we were shooting, and I'm trying to shoot my phase 1 thing again. So it was like pretty frustrating. And when I went into the park, some guys from National Geographic who I'd met before, they said, Ken, what are you doing? He said, because they saw my camera with this big lens on it, they said, what are you doing? I said, I'm shooting with a phase 1. I'm, shooting that stage. I think it was 80 megapixels or something. And they said, wow, man, what size lens? I said, only equivalent to 300. And they said, oh, man, we're using 800s and 1200s. And there's, 3 cubs we've been trying to get. And I said, oh, well, they're going to have to get real close to me then, aren't they? And they said, oh, well, good luck. And so I was in the park for quite a few days and I never got really close enough to these 3 cubs. Then finally on the last day, and this is very important, never give up. Always just, I still had a belief that something was going to happen. And then right on the last day, we heard over the radio that the National Geographic guys had got the cubs in the bush and they were waiting for them to come out. So I went over there and there's all these cars just hassling the animals, and I'm never into that. I thought, I can't handle that. When people want to jostle, I'm out of there. And so I thought, I'll just go over here away from them, and maybe if they come out, they'll come out over there and I'll be in the right spot. And there were two guards there on elephants, or national park guys with elephants, were like bookends to my car. One on one end, one on the other end. And then all of a sudden they couldn't get good shots, and the people were, really yelling and carrying on like idiots. And then all of a sudden they came out through the bush, and then they came up and sat on this rock ledge right near me, and that's full frame. Like, thank God I didn't have any bigger.
Wow.
That's shot full frame. I couldn't have, and so they sat there, and I had them there for about, 10 minutes, and everybody's going, all of a sudden, all I can hear is people, let us in, it's out there. And the guides on the elephant saying, listen, no one can move right now. We've got to protect the tigers. They need an exit point. And so I'm just sitting there, oh, sorry, guys, So I'm just sitting there waiting for the right looks, going, oh, click, click, click. And then all of a sudden they said, now you can move. And I moved. And as soon as I moved, they took off. And then the National Geographic guys came up to me and said, don't tell me you just got that. I said, yeah, 80 megapixels and just the perfect thing. And they'd been there for weeks waiting for the shot. And I got the shot. So, you know, things happen that are pretty. And this was, there's a guy in Australia called Charles Davis. He does some great,
amazing photographer.
Does some wildlife. And I went down with Charles and he was fun to be with in his snow. He's doing some great stuff. I can't wait to see his book one day. So anybody want any questions? This is about the eyes. This is a new shot from the new book. Like a lot of the shots in the book, people have never seen before, you know. So this is all about the eyes. And with wildlife, you really need the eyes. And now,
were you lying on the ground here, Ken?
Yeah, I'm right down on the ground. Yeah, just making sure. Yeah, it's always good to shoot from a low angle.
Like, are you under the car at this stage?
The trouble is you got to start from a flat point. If you're in, yeah, look, I go with good guides, and you know, I'm not an idiot, but well, that's probably debatable. But look, you've got to get low, you know. So yeah, for that one. And now this is another one too. Like birds aren't necessarily my thing, but I shot this one with phase 1. So when you see this as a big print, you see every feather, and the color is just amazing. And that sky is not deep etched. I made sure the background was cloud, so it was white cloud. So we used the white cloud as the backdrop, and so that's shot. Now this is shot with my I shoot now. The one I love now is the S1R, but this one was shot with a Nikon 850. Yeah, so that's up in Finland. And then again, this is a line, but really, they say. But for me, this is a perfect line. He's just so beautiful, this line. And it's shot, again, that one with phase 1. So when you blow it up, you see me reflected in its eyes in the car with my camera. That's detail. So look, would you like to ask any questions? Rather than me going blah, 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 I'm sure there's people out there who want to say something. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting, Ken, how you just rattled off like a whole bunch of very different systems that operate quite differently and are quite different in the hand. And I guess, you know, one of the wealth of knowledge you probably have, I guess, is having tried your hand at so many different systems, you know, in terms of what lifts itself above the others for certain things. And obviously wildlife photography is quite a specific genre to photograph. And, you know, what would you suggest people would be looking for in terms of, you know, they might not be going out there with a phase 1, but, you know, what would you suggest that they go for? Are the kind of systems or things to look for? Or...
Look, I like the mirrorless cameras because they're not so noisy, you know, and because, you know, I've been in hides with people there in the old days with their Nikons and Canons, and you're waiting for that decisive moment, then all of a sudden, and there goes your wildlife. It's like, gee, great, you know. Yeah. So it's really good to have the mirrorless cameras. And so I do like the S1R. That's the new camera. But my big thing is now I'm trying to get lenses, long lenses. They're a bit slow in getting the long lenses.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. So that's the new Leica system, is it?
Yeah, well, it's Panasonic and Leica.
Panasonic and Leica together, right?
Yeah, and look, you can shoot with pixel shift on those. You can get something like 190 megapixels.
Yeah, 186, I think. Yeah, it's right. It's right up there.
That's a lot, you know. And so, but you know, it's the phase 1 was is so heavy. That's the trouble. Like it's just so heavy to deal with, and so I'm liking the new cameras. But I use different cameras at different times depending on what I'm doing. So, you know, it depends on. And I have a fascination with 3D too, as well. So, you know, that's another story. And so this is also, you know, just being ready for the moment. Like this panda bear gets up in the tree and goes, "Are you ready now?" Like, it was like, it's so much fun. This is just a new shot just from the book. But zebras can be hard to shoot because, man, they just got this knack of, as soon as you're ready to take a photo, they turn their backside to you. And it's like what we call another quadruple A African shot, another African animal's ass. You know, that
I haven't heard that one.
They quadruple A. And the animals, they're just, they get you ready, and all of a sudden they go, now, how about this? And they turn their backside to you. So,
A couple birds hiding on there as well.
yeah, well, they're the ox pickers, and it's just they're amazing. So again, the detail on that's pretty big when you go big. And this is something in China when I was there with the black swans. I like this because and I call it swirl. It's a new print that I've just done. But when you see it big, you just see all the details in it, and it's just the color and the way.
It's magic.
And then this one's, are you seeing them big, or are you just seeing them half across the screen?
They're big.
Yeah, they're pretty big, Ken.
Okay. So this is something with wildlife photography you've got to be careful of when you've got high key situations. You know, you always got to make sure you compensate or look at your histogram, which is for me like God in a camera. If it's right on your histogram, you know you got it. But this is a polar bear, you know, like now I was there with a group, and we had some amazing sightings of bears and everything, but all the group, they had to go off because I was going to spend an extra few days there just doing some planning for another trip I'm going to do there. And anyhow, they all left, and the night before, the actual Hudson sort of froze over. So all the bears took off again onto the ice, and they're all, oh, Ken, what a bad news. You know, all the polar bears are gone. Oh, we're so sorry for you. And I said, oh, it's okay, mate. I'll just have fun. No worries, whatever. And so all of a sudden, there were apparently a lot of polar bears, 7 of them, who were put in polar bear prison, because if they come into town and they won't go away, they put them in prison. And they don't look after them, or they don't give them a lot of food because they don't want to encourage them to get into prison. And so unbeknownst to me, all of a sudden I'm out just looking at these special breed of dogs that live out in the snow because they don't want them to lose condition. And there'd been a blizzard the night before, and here's these dogs, and then all of a sudden these polar bears that had been released from the polar bear prison. So they, on their way through, came and played with the dogs. And I'm just thinking, my gosh, you know, is this going to end really badly, you know? And so my guide was so concerned about, you know, watching other polar bears who were trying to sneak up on us. You know, maybe these two are doing a decoy act, I'm not sure. But anyhow, we waited, and this just happened. These two played so playfully for about 20 minutes or something like that. And then they both parted their own way. Now, that polar bear would have been really hungry. And so I called this one Share the Love, because, you know, here's 2 animals that really, you know, very ferocious animals, and here they are playing together in some of the most hostile conditions around. So I don't think I'm going to see that sort of shot again for a long time.
I've never seen anything like that, Ken. No interaction with that sort of, those cross species in particular, and let alone with, you could read that different ways, I guess. It's kind of hard, but you don't get any doubt about the level of power and capacity and the bear in particular, you know, what it's capable of doing. And
one motion, that thing would be cut into salami, you know. And the dogs, they're pretty ferocious too. But, you know, for me, it's amazing moments, you know. So on to the next one. So I'll show you some more. So this is, you know, I love also, you know, shooting in these sort of situations. And so when you've got low-key situations, you've got to watch your exposure again. But he's a lovely gorilla. He looks great when you're doing big. Now, this is another thing I really like doing a lot of too, is shooting multiple levels in a shot. Now, I shot this on the phase, and I did a stitch on the phase of the scene. But I also then did a shot of the tree on the same stitching head. So I had the tree to put in later, because to get the depth of field, I knew that I was going to lose the tree. And I'm so glad I did, because when I did the stitch, that's the front shot. And then I just dropped the tree in from the other stitch, and it went in perfectly. And when you see a big print of it, in that tree, there's 2 lovebirds sitting on the top branch. You may not be able to see.
Oh, yeah, I can just see them.
Yeah, but they're these 2 lovebirds. So when you see the print, you don't just have the mother and the child, but you have, you know, and it's also creating a different balance. And, you know, that rule of thirds is for idiots, you know, really. I just think, we lack imagination, you know, like people talk about the rule of thirds. Okay, by all means, but there's no thirds there. To me, it's about balance in a shot. It doesn't have to be thirds. By all means, do thirds if you want to, but explore other combinations, just that. And so this is something I think more wildlife, and maybe they already do it, I don't know, but I love doing multiple levels, because when you're telling a story, one of the important things of telling a story is your eyes go to the focused points. So if you only have one point of focus, you're only going to have that story. But why not have other points of focus in the picture so you can have a bit more of the story? And so the eyes can go between the different points. So this is how you get a low angle. And I posted this to show people how you can actually get a low angle and just drive along. And if you've got a heavy camera, it acts like a ballast. And it's just a joke, everybody out there, okay?
I was going to say years of training.
I posted that as a joke.
Zen master.
Yeah, I posted that as a joke, saying, now this is the way you get low angles. So you can just hang off there. You just got to watch out for the bumps.
Oh, the shirt you're wearing is very appropriate too.
and I said, look, and having a big heavy camera is good because it acts like ballast when you go over the bumps. And anyhow, it was just a joke. And so this is the shot I took from that angle. So getting a low angle with elephants. And you know, I occasionally do black and whites, but for me, I mainly love color. But I've got some new black and whites. Now that shot on phase and the detail of that is mind blowing. That's a 100 megapixel shot, and it's just the detail when you see it. And you really need this print elephant size so that you can really see the elephant in the room. You know, so.
What sort of focal length was that shot at, Ken?
That's shot with a 35 millimeter lens.
Oh, pretty close.
I'm only 2 meters away from it.
I was going to say you almost be reaching out to give it a kiss.
Yeah, well, it was close, but you get to know the animal. You got to spend time with him. He thought we were a threat to the herd, but as soon as he got to know us, he relaxed a bit. But you know, you just got to keep an eye on him, because my friend was in the back going, too close, and I was like, it'll be okay. But he's a great. Anyhow, so this is just a lion shooting front on. These are just, you know, some other shots shooting silhouettes. You know, to get a silhouette of an elephant can be hard sometimes because you've got to get down low and at the right time. This is a new one I just shot. When you see this big, you get all the detail. And this is the polar bears. When their ice formed, they all took off out to go and get seals. And so they'll sit there for days waiting for a seal to pop up, and then they'll just nab it. Like, they are just amazing hunters, you know?
Yeah.
And so one of them refused to look at me, and he said, you look and see the guy's not a threat, and I'll keep looking just in case the seal pops up. But I just, you know, I like the contrast between that. And
so Ken, is that from a deck of a boat from that angle?
No, that's from a helicopter.
Helicopter, is that one or the other, I was thinking?
Yeah. You wouldn't get a boat up there. That's a pretty high angle. And that's the book. That's the book there. Now, we are doing a launch, a virtual launch this Friday at 7 p.m. So I'm going to talk more about the shots. I've got a whole bunch more than you're going to see tonight. But by all means, people are welcome. There's no charge or anything like that. But come on, and I'm going to, and they can ask questions about individual shots or something like that. I've never done one of these before, so bear with me if you're coming on. But thank goodness I've got other people who are very talented with me too.
Well, and I guess that's something that, you know, you've done a lot through your career, Ken, is adapting to technology and the different changes in the industry and the huge shift from film to digital, and now so much to this online kind of world and social media, and you've probably seen as much of the changes as anybody in terms of being operating in the middle of it all. Like, what do you just hinted that getting certain people around you helps you transition or come up to date, but how do you feel like you've managed to keep yourself so current for so long?
Look, I love technology to a good degree. I love to know what it can do. I don't want to get caught up in it. You know, I believe very much in surrounding yourself with the best people. I had an assistant, Danny, who's been stuck down in Melbourne. Poor Danny. She's been really great and helpful in teaching me some things, and other people teach me things, and you know, even you guys teach me things. Ignacio, different people, we all teach each other. So, but for me, don't get too caught up in the technology. You know, like it's there. Like, you know, I pull my film camera out every now and then and just get back to normality. You know, because to me, it's not about all the technicality. It's about capturing the moment. You know, and that's the most important thing. And all this social media stuff. Look, I do a little bit of it, but really, I'm not going to spend my life wondering what people like and don't like. You know, for me, the best like you can get is when someone likes your work enough to buy it, and you know, and that's what you need to do to sell work. Uh, you know, so and social media is a very low level way of being able to see something. Like you spend all this time getting big shots on large files, and then someone looks at them on a phone. Like, really, that's an insult, I reckon. It's like when you see a real Ansel Adams print. It's amazing when you see the real thing. And so, you know, for me, there's too much social media and not enough people actually printing their work. For me, a photograph is not a photograph until it's printed. And that's why we're going to do the launch, because what I'll be able to do on the launch is I'll also be able to zoom in, because this shot here that you're seeing here, this is shot large format, and you've got the elephants, the babies, and just the contrast between the red dirt, the blue sky. When you see it big, it just, wow, it's sort of, you know, well, I like it, but I mean, it just takes you back. So
just to compliment you, Ken, like I've seen and judged enough work in the world online that I can tell when something's shot at the caliber you've done it, and it's actually not that easy to create an online presentation that honors that as well as it can in this small format. But you've done it super well. Like the detail and caliber, sharpness, and the resolution on the file is amazing, and probably the best I've seen actually for just online presentations. So whatever you've done, I want a piece of that.
Oh, mate, you guys. Well, look, I'm inspired by you guys and all the young people out there I see, you know, like it's, look, in photography, we're all just telling a story. No one's story is any more important than the other. And, you know, when I first started, all the media people saying, oh, you should tell about this award you've won. You should tell about this award. And you're the best photographer here. And someone said you this and that. And I always felt really uncomfortable saying all that sort of stuff. And in the end, I said, you know what? I'm not going to say any of that. I'm an average photographer with a great God. That's who I am. And I'm comfortable with that. You know, let someone else be whatever they want to be. I just love that. And they said, well, that's a ridiculous line. I said, well, that's who I am. And, you know, it's not false humility. It's just, I believe there's something bigger happening than us. And if we can humble ourselves enough, you'll get to sense that thing that I'm talking about. And a lot of you guys are doing it. So like I look at some of the photos you guys are taking, I think, man, that is so good. And I don't think, oh, I got to go and do that. I think, well, that's great. I didn't have to get out of bed for that one. Someone else had to do it. So this is, so by all means, register if you'd like to come and we can talk more about the exhibition. So this is
that going to be live, Ken?
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to pre-record some of the talking about the shots, but I'm going to be there live to answer questions.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Yes.
So, Ken, just to give some details of the book, how many pages and hardcover? And
it's hardcover with, look, we went, when it comes to books, we really go the full hog. That's why color profiling. Like I talked to another big company, and I won't mention the name, who's putting out a book on wildlife, and they weren't even profiling their images. And, you know, I said, you've got to be kidding. How can you? And oh, it'll be okay. It won't be okay. You know, if you spend all this time getting images right, you've got to learn about color profiling. Like my ISO monitor, I love my ISO monitor, and I have learned to understand really managing color correctly, because when you profile a book correctly for a printer, you're getting the full gamut of color available to you, not just trying to do some generic thing, you know, and being disappointed with the results. So on this book, we did varnishes on all the images, you know, so that's another process. We did French fold jackets. So we've done, you know, because to me, it's about quality. And a lot of publishers say, oh, well, people wouldn't know about quality. And I say they're wrong. One of the successes for our company has been is we always spend the money on quality, and people do resonate to quality. And that's, you know, even when it comes to printing or everything like that, we should, as professionals, produce things to the highest standards possible. Now, this shot up there now, this is one of our probably most famous shots. This is the Midnight Oil album cover.
You've had quite a long relationship with them, Ken, over a number of years.
Yeah, they're great guys, you know, and we still keep in touch. And it's just, I don't want to be a rock and roll photographer, but I did mind working with them because they're more than just a rock and roll band. And this album cover we did is still one of the leading album covers in the world. And this is one of the shots we did. And this is, again, just a miraculous moment, how that whole thing evolved for that particular shot, you know. And that was for Rolling Stone and also for their...
Where are you there, Ken?
We're out at Kalgoorlie, Lake Lefroy, what do they call it out there, the Salt Lakes?
Yeah, Lake Lefroy, yeah.
Yeah, so, and it was just, that's got such a big story in its own right. I don't know if I should tell you, that might take too long, but that one was an amazing...
We got plenty of time, Ken.
Okay, well, this was shot with a wide lux, you know, one of my wide luxes, which I still have my wide luxes there. Anyhow, so I was out there, and we were out there with a French film crew for MTV, the Australian film crew for MTV, Richard Wilkins, that. And then we also had another film crew who was shooting the Blue Sky mining video clips and stuff like that. And then the manager, Gary Morris, at the time said, look, I want you to do some stills for Rolling Stone and for our tour poster. And they said, you've got permission to, you know, you've got right of way. When you need to do the shot, you just call it and they've got to do it. Okay. So I go over there, and we're over in Kalgoorlie, and oh mate, it's so funny, the whole Kalgoorlie thing. Anyhow, we sort of, when I started shooting, I realized that the film crews were just arguing with each other, especially the French. No disrespect to French, but this crew were really arrogant. And they were just getting everybody's shots. It was all about them. And so in the next minute, it's not Midnight Oil's fault, but these other film crews are starting to, you know, fight and, well, you know, start to get really toey with each other. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, someone's got to act as a peace brigade here, otherwise it's going to be chaos. And I could see the poor film crew who was trying to do the film clips were really having real issues. And I said, look, I can see you're under pressure. I won't add to the pressure. I'll just do this. Look, I'll try and run the edges and try and keep peace and things like that if you just give me the last half a day. And I said, Ken, if you could do that, that'd be awesome. So my job was really, you know, to try and keep people at peace. And the good way to keep a Frenchman at peace is red wine. Works very well.
Of course.
But not too much. But I was just, you know, hamming it up and having a bit of fun. And we were able to, everybody, they were able to get their shots. I got a few shots around the side, but I had got my big shot. And anyhow, the last day came when I had my time to shoot. And by the time in the morning, about 10 o'clock in the morning, it was like 45, 50 degrees in the shade. It was one of the hottest days. And it was so hot, I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to get out and get this shot. Maybe I'll do it in the middle of the day. So I took the guys out onto these big red dirt tailings, and it was like really, like we're on Mars. And we tried to do some shots there, but no kidding, none of us could stand still because the heat was coming through our shoes so badly. We couldn't stand still. And so with shoes on, you know, so we thought that's not going to work. So we went back to the swimming pool. And here's the French and all that. They're all in, they've got quite a few ladies on their team, and they're all in their beautiful little, very costumes, their little bikinis with very little fabric on them, I must say. Didn't get much value for that. But anyhow, they're all sitting there. They're all relaxing because they've got their shots, and they're looking at the weather, and the weather's starting to come in because of the heat. The storms are starting to roll in, and they're saying, gee, Ken, have you got your shot yet? You know, because I'd been, you know, keeping the peace, but all of a sudden the pressure's on me, and I still haven't got these shots for Rolling Stone. Anyhow, they said, so what are you going to do? I said, oh, I don't know. I might go out to the lake where we were shooting before. And they said, oh, can we all come? And I said, why would you want to come? Oh, we just want to watch your work. So all of them, they got eskies full of beer and canapes, and they all came out with deck chairs. So behind me, I've got an entourage of all these people just watching me. When we get out there, it is like El Puco-like. And they say, well, what are you going to do? And I'm getting desperate. I'm thinking of actually shooting black and white. So if I'm shooting black and white, generally I'm in desperation mode. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, you know, what's going to happen? And then it's getting darker and darker. And then all of a sudden, if things aren't bad enough already, you'll see there's only two hats. There's one on Jim and one at the feet of Peter Garrett. Well, this huge wind comes in, you know, like, and all the guys in the back are going, they've been having quite a few beers and wines or whatever they were drinking. And they're saying, gee, not looking real good. You're running out of light. You know, thank you very much. So I'm quite aware of that. And anyhow, I'm sitting there with one of the roadies who's also a Christian, and I'm saying, oh man, this is really, really cutting it fine. He's a typical God, 5 minutes to 12. And I said, mate, we're at 5 minutes to 12. He said, yeah, we are. And then all of a sudden this huge wind comes and blows like so badly that 3 of the hats are somewhere in New South Wales now. You know, they just took off. And I'm trying to hang on to my camera and I'm going, oh God, give us a break. Like, hello, as if it isn't bad enough. And then all of a sudden that wind just died and it had blown a hole in the horizon. The sun pops in, boom. And this happens, I'm like, ah! And so I'm like, and all I can hear behind me though is like, ah! And I can't be bothered about that, but what's happened behind me, the cameraman had realized what was happening. He got his movie camera that he put away because nothing was going to happen. And it had an umbilical cord on it that went to a recording unit. And so apparently what had happened is when he got the camera, the cord had got wrapped around one of the girls' throats. And he's trying to pull it, and she's going, ah! Anyhow, by the time they untangled her, you know, by that,
that's classic.
They didn't get a single frame. And then all of a sudden the light had gone and they go, oh man, you're so lucky. I said, my God looks after you. And, you know, like so that's how that shot came about. And it was, but
so one of the hats is on the ground to stop it blowing away.
He had his hat. Yeah, well, the wind died down when he put that hat down, but before, I'm serious, the wind was just like, as a wide lux camera, so I decided to have the rainbow come down on Peter's head because they're a lovely bunch of guys. They really are, you know. And this is another shot we shot. I ended up winning some awards for it only because I didn't know what I was doing, you know. And then they contacted me and they wanted me to send them photos of all the other bands I'd shot. I said, well, man, I only shot one band because I'm not really wanting to be a rock and roll photographer. And I think the only reason I wanted is because I didn't know what I was doing. So,
well, I imagine not a lot of those shots have been done on wide format either.
No, exactly. Now, this is to go and show you that this is done when the first Quantel machine came in. This is before Photoshop. So this was like Photoshop was around, but it was really basic. So this is way done back a long time when a guy bought in a Quantel machine, they cost $1 million in those days. And he was the first one to have them. And so we shot Martin Rotzi's guitar. Then we shot a Ripple. We had to go and shoot a Ripple. And then I used one of the shots I'd shot out there. And so that was probably one of the first composite shots, you know, that was done in Australia. Well, there's other ones done in other methods, but on a Quantel machine because
was this mid-80s, Ken? Or?
I forget exactly. Well, yeah, it would have been 80s. Yeah. So mid-80s, exactly. And, you know, sad story in the end for that guy because with technology moving so quickly, the Quantel system sold somebody else another one for half the price at twice the resolution, you know. So, technology can be fun.
So, Ken, before we jump ahead, like if you would be so kind, that album cover has been with me my whole life. The actual Diesel and Dust one. Yep. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that? That's just it's been with me my whole life, and I'm also
interested to hear as well, Ken, about how you've also been petitioning, I guess, to make sure it stays there as well.
Look, I've got to know the farmers really well, and they're really beautiful people. But when I shot it, I just saw, you know, like I knew Midnight Oil before I used to live with their manager, and when I took off, like I was in the photographing industry as a rep and advising in high-end lighting setups and labs and things like that. And I just thought there's got to be more to life than this. And I saw a lot of photographers all having to make money by shooting cars, bras or handlebars. And they're not really wanting to do it. You know, they're really talented people, but they've got these art directors telling them what to do, you know. Yeah. And I thought there's got to be a way to make money shooting what you like rather than shooting what some art director thinks you should shoot. So I decided to go off when I found these panoramic cameras, which our company actually bought in. They just made me think, I want to go and do this. And so that's where the journey started. And my friends were all thinking, man, you're crazy. Why would you give up all this money? And I had a house down at Monavale Beach and all this sports cars. And they, and I said, listen, mate, it may mean something to you. It's not working for me. There's got to be more to life. So that's really what my journey was about. And the cameras were just recording the story. So when I came back after 3 years, you know, just disappearing, the guys wanted to know where you been. Like, everyone wanted to know where I'd been. So I showed them some of the pictures, and they said, "Man, we love that." And so they wanted to use it for their album cover. Now, what happened is, in those days, we wanted to give it a solarized look. So what we had to do, there was no Photoshop this time. So what we had to do is we actually had to do a process called solarization. So we actually copied the transparency and then did this solarization process, which gives it that look like that. And so that's how we came about, and it ended up winning ARIA awards. We got an ARIA award for it, something like that. So that's how it came about. And, you know, it was fun. And with the farmers there, years later, I went back to their farm and to do another shot because I had the larger format camera. And so I still didn't know where the farmers were, because in those days, you know, I didn't know when I shot this shot either. But I found out as I was shooting, along came a farmer, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, look, mate, I'm just taking a photo. I'm sorry. If you're the farmer, I didn't know where you were." He said, "Oh, yeah, look, mate, ever since that Ken Duncan bloke did that midnight oil shot, every man and his dog's been here." And I said, "Well, actually, I am Ken Duncan." He said, "Oh, really, mate?" Yeah, yeah, it was really good. I said, "Well, I hope you don't mind." He said, "Oh, no, mate, it's fine." He said, and actually, I had my jack was playing up, a pneumatic jack, and he said, I don't know how we got onto that. He said, "Oh, I'll fix that while we wait, shall I?" So he pulls out his tools, fixing my jack. Anyhow, so we got the shot. And so over the years, I got to know him and his wife, Jodie, who loves photography too. And so what happened is we found out that the cottage was falling down, and one of the walls was falling down. And when that happens, then the roof comes off and away you go. And so he contacted me and said, "Look, is there any way you guys could help Midnight Oil and you to raise some money, because we need to get a proper a stonesmith in there, or mason in there, to do some work to repair the thing rather than just cement it up?" We said, "Mate, let's do something." So we actually got a print, which we put out specially, and Midnight Oil himself, and we raised, you know, I think about 30 grand or something. We were able to pay to get it all restored inside, not restored so it looks brand new, but just so it looks exactly like it would. And so it's still standing. If we hadn't have done that, it would have been down by now. So
wow. Yeah.
and we had some roofing company saying, "Oh, we'll pay for the whole thing. We'll put a brand new roof on it." I said, "No, you won't."
Oh no.
I want a brand new roof on it, you know. So yeah, that's the story behind that. So something I love talking about is sensing the fourth dimension. Now, one of the things about photography is learning to create the third dimension, which is a subject in itself. But even Ansel Adams, he said, "Sometimes I do get to places just when God's ready to have someone click the shutter." See, there's a lot of people, if you're doing landscape as much as we do, you start to realize there's something bigger going on than us. And, you know, and if people believe that, let them believe that. Don't, you know, it's so funny. Non-believers can be so critical of anybody who dares to have a faith, you know. Or, you know, if you call yourself a Christian, they won't have a go at you. Like, I don't care what anybody is. I've got friends of all beliefs, faiths, sexualities, you name it. I love people, and, you know, everyone should be able to have their belief. And it doesn't have to be my belief, but we need to be more tolerant of each other, not trying to ram our own beliefs down someone else's throat, but allow everybody to be who they are. Now, talking about the fourth dimension, this one, I was the last day in Colorado, and I was Yankee Boy Basin, and the flowers are out, the wildflowers are out, and this is shot on film. And so I went there early in the morning. As you know, the rule with landscape photography, if you're first, you should get the first position, but be mindful of other people. Don't be just a jerk and sit there and take it all yourself. So I'm sitting there waiting, and other photographers came in, and, you know, they were all very polite. And then all of a sudden, just as the, you know, the light's getting a little bit better, along comes this idiot wearing a jacket with all those little holes in it, all those little, you know, with Nikon written on it or something like that. And I thought, oh my gosh, here comes Mr. Joe Amateur with his multi tricks. And anyhow, he walks straight into the shot, right into the middle of the flowers, in front of everybody, with his coffee, because he got there late because he had to stop to get his Starbucks, you know. And I'm just thinking, what are you doing? You know, and now one of the most important things in photography is to remain peaceful. If you lose your peace, you've lost your presence, you know. And I was losing my peace because I felt I need to go and tell this guy about the rules of landscape photography. And I thought, and you know, I must admit, I was even saying, God, you know, get this guy. Thank goodness God's gracious. But anyhow, I realized I was the one who's the problem. Okay, he walked in the flowers. I thought, this is no good, Ken. What are you going to do? Go and tell him? He's probably going to say, listen here, mate, I've got a bunch of bright, you know, all that sort of stuff. I thought, nah, I'm out of here. So I just left. And so I'm driving off, and the light wasn't, you know, anything to write home to mum about. So I thought, I'm out. So I went off driving, and I drove about 80 miles away, you know, just through the mountains. And then all of a sudden I felt, where should I go now? And I often do this, you know. This is not Google. It's, you know, it's GPS, God positioning system, not the other one. And I just went, okay, where do you think I should go? And I just felt the thing saying, go back to where you came from. What? Where that guy's with that little jacket? And I, you know. So I went back. By the time I got back there, no one's there because it's gone overcast and grey and it's starting to sprinkle. And I just felt, get out and set your camera gear up and see what happens. And so I set my gear up and I'm just waiting. And then all of a sudden it's raining a little bit. And I, you know, when I'm sitting around waiting, I just have conversations with the universe or whatever you want to call it. But I just say, okay, you know, God, you could do better than this. I'm trying to give him recommendations. Say, you know, you could do a rainbow or something like that. You could do this. And then all of a sudden, someone the day before had said, if the hairs ever start standing up on your arms and you're hearing thunder and lightning, you may be about to be hit by lightning. And I went, oh, so anyhow, I'm having conversations, trying to recommend how God could do a better job of lighting. And all of a sudden, there's this thunder and rumbling going all through the sky. And I'm thinking, all the hairs are standing up. And I'm going, okay, just a recommendation, you know. And I thought, no, maybe something's really going to happen. And it did. All of a sudden, it started bucketing down raining. It just like torrential. I'm with an umbrella, sucking it in, princess, and like going, you're delusional, Ken. You're sitting in a field of flowers thinking you're having conversations with God. You're more like Mary Poppins or something. And I said, you know, you should pack up and get out of here. And I thought, no, I've waited this long. I don't care if I get drenched. I'm just going to wait. Then all of a sudden, boom, out comes this double rainbow. And it's just all happening. And I'm like, I'm the only person there. Another photographer who'd been sitting in his car, by the time he got out to try and get the shot, all gone. And he goes, oh, you're really lucky. I said, mate, you know. And so, you know, this is what I think that's an exciting aspect of photography that not a lot of people are willing to explore, because it's not about how great they are. It's about how great something bigger than them is, you know. And this is something I shot just recently. Now, we're on this beach and everybody's trying to shoot your normal, you know, Northern Lights. And I decided, okay, I could shoot a Northern Lights, but if you shoot a Northern Lights with your normal cameras, you're going to have to get a panorama, you're going to crop top and bottom, and you're going to lose so many pixels that you're going to have a very small file to end up with, right? So I decided I was going to try and do a stitch of a Northern Lights. And so what happens with Northern Lights, sometimes they move and then they phase, and then they'll stop, and then, and so I thought, right, I need a good scene. And so with this one, I stitched it. I did 5 shots and just waited for them. And now I've got to admit, I only got one that worked, but you only need one. But you could have ended up with, and I shot some of the other shots, but for me, I was going for, like, I wanted to go for something a bit different. So I can blow this up really big. And, you know, I have, you know, all the detail, because it's something like 2.5 gigs.
Looks like you had just the right amount of moonlight as well.
Yeah, but I like a little bit of moonlight, you know. Look, I don't want to become Astro King. You guys are much better at all this than me, but I just love doing sometimes Astro, and I like all sorts of light, you know. And this is, you know,
when you see that sort of scene with the aurora going off, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, look, that's one of the most amazing things I've ever experienced. In fact, I put my camera down after a while and just sat back and lay down and went, oh my gosh, it was like dancing light, you know. So there's just often on your journey, things happen that you think aren't meant to happen, but often something's happening bigger than you. And this is just an example of that. Like, I was traveling in the Flinders Ranges. I was on the way to the other side of the mountain. I had it all worked out what I was going to shoot for sunrise. It was all going to happen. But on the way, I got stuck behind a mining truck. And oh my gosh, it was just dust everywhere. And I'm running, this thing's going like 10 miles an hour, some ridiculous speed, And so I'm starting to think, right, that's it, I'm going to pass it. Really dumb idea when you can't see. And, even though I hadn't seen any cars, you can guarantee that if you tried to pass it, that moment you might see a car, and it wouldn't be pretty. And so I realized that I was losing my peace and worrying about this truck. And then I thought, nah, obviously something else is going on. So I stopped, I slowed down and I looked at what the dust was doing around to the scene around me. I thought, man, this dust is really cool. We should work with this dust. And I went past this tree and I saw what it was doing. And so I went to my assistant, who was Glenn McKimmon at the time. He's a great photographer himself now.
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah, but so Glenn was there. I said, all right, Glenn, you get in the car and you drive past and we'll create some dust and see if we can block that light with some, dust and see what happens, And we weren't digital, so we really didn't know in the end what we'd got until we got it. And we're shooting on film with 4 stops. So, not like digital with 12 or 14 stops. And so the first run, Glenn came around and he gave it heaps, and to the point where he lost control of it. And I realized it was coming at me. So I had to jump off to the left here into the ditch. We had plenty of dust, but that was a bit too much. And so he was okay. He did a few more runs and we sort of got it. And this is one of the shots we got. So often those things that come along in life that seem to be in our way or hindering us can often be things to try and stop us, to slow us down, to get our attention to a bigger picture than the one that we think we're going for. So
I've got this joke that a statement that I often pull out, a little bit related to that, Ken, that I use quite a lot. It's what's the fastest way to make God laugh? And he was like, what? Tell him your plans.
Yeah. Exactly. I think John Lennon said that similar thing too. He's if you want to make God laugh. So this one, how I was fortunate enough and, to get on this beach because of the Olympics. I was shooting for the Olympics, a book on Australia. So I got a special permit to go down on the beach. I think very few people have ever been on this beach. And now they still won't let people down there. And actually they blew up the tunnel, which is just so ridiculous. But when I got permission to do it, I spent 2 weeks down there. I thought, man, I'm going to never get back here again. But it's just sometimes you can get favor, like I was very blessed to be able to get that opportunity. So.
And also a few stacks that aren't
there
anymore as well.
They're not all still there, are they, Ken?
Yeah.
Exactly. 2 of those are gone. So Carragini, I started shooting many years ago, and that's where I, and like even today, like if you're going to I found another location in Carragini, which I'm going back to. We've just found that hasn't really been photographed. There's lots of other little gorges up there, but these are 2 of my favorite spots in Carragini. And a lot of people don't actually get to these because and this is about this is what God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. Often when everybody's on to me about, COVID, the end of the world's coming and what's going to happen, who's going to buy books and all that sort of stuff. For me to have a faith in something bigger than me is really helpful because, I don't listen to what the world says. I will listen to what I believe, God says. And, and I just felt like on both of these, to get to these locations, when I first shot these, I shot them on film. Both these locations, we had no ropes and we had to sort of climb into this area. And we got to one section where all of a sudden it was very precarious. If you'd fallen, you would have, gone dead, died, So, but I had a camera bag hanging off my shoulder, but I just felt there's something around the corner. There's just some shot around the corner. And I just thought, should I go? And I just went, go for it. And so I went and I got round and I got this shot, which the original one was called Journey to the Center. And so often, and then the other one here is on the right-hand side. This was in Carragini. To get to this one, you have to actually climb in through the canyon. Yeah. It's quite involved and people use ropes. We didn't have a rope. We had to just get in there and no one really, like I went with this friend of mine, and he's such a funny guy, Hugh Brown, great photographer. You've got to see some of his work. He's just a very talented guy. Anyhow, we came up here, and he said, "Oh, I've heard about this spot," and we get right to the top where we're going to slip into the water. And I said, "Have you actually ever been down here?" And he says, "No, but I've heard." And I thought, great. So we had to come down here, and then, you know, we had to get on another, jump in and then jump down another waterfall. It was quite an adventure, but it was amazing. We got the shot. And being the older photographer, I couldn't let down the side. I had to, because, you know, Hugh's a great photographer, and he loves a bit of an adventure. But yeah, so this is a shot that now, like, we're in a lot of resale now.
For a second, you might have just moved your camera there, so we can't actually see your face anymore.
Oh, I look better that way.
There you go.
There we go. So this was one that's like some of our shots now are sold out, and that we actively trying to buy some of them back, or people know about them. Like my assistant Danny, she's amazing. She's a real collector, and she's really, look, photographers have got to realize the collectability of photography. Like you guys from Tasmania, right? Years ago, I came and give a lecture down there because I've got a few good mates down there. Well, you guys down there too now. And Dennis Harding and different people, and you're in a beautiful place. And I came down to do an exhibition down in Launceston because Dennis had said, "Oh, you can't sell prints down here. You know, it's different here. It's not like the East Coast and all this sort of stuff and blah, blah." And I said, "Look, people, we've got a lot of clients down there. I mean, look, it's just, I do believe you can." So we did an exhibition down in Launceston, and we sold a bucket load of prints, you know, and for reasonable prices. And so then he said, "Oh, well, you know," and I said, "Look, it's about you. If you don't believe in photography as an art form, why will anybody else?" I said, you know, and so I did a workshop down there, down in Hobart at one stage, and people wanted me to do a workshop and tell them how to do selling and all that sort of stuff. So I did one. And one of my first questions was when they all wanted to know how to sell prints, I said, "So who loves Peter Dombrovskis's work?" And all the hands, "Oh, yeah." Because, you know, Peter was an amazing photographer. And I said, "So who's been to one of his exhibitions?" "Oh, yeah. Everybody's hands up and all this sort of stuff. And then said,
What a print.
"Who's bought a print?" Not one hand went up. And there was like 150 people in that room who all want to sell photography. And I said, "Well, you see, here you had a great photographer and you never bought one. I mean, if you don't believe in it, how are you ever going to convince anybody else about the collectability of photography?" You know, so I'm a collector of photography. I love it. I don't collect because I want to sell it, because I want to one day have another gallery where I can show works of people who've gone before us, so that they can see real prints from some of these photographers. Because when you see a real print, it's just so totally different than low-level social media or anything like that. So this is the thing, like, and in our gallery, often people, you know, will come into our gallery, and you can always tell a photographer because they look at a print 1 foot away or 300 millimeters away, and
Yeah.
they're looking for the detail. And I say, "I'll say you're a photographer," and they'll go, "Wow, how did you know?" So, "Well, just, you know, lucky guess." And I said, "So would you like to sell work?" And, "Oh, I'd love to sell work." And I said, "Oh, great." I said, "So whose work have you bought?" "Oh, well, just my own." I said, "Well, how are you ever going to convince people about the collectability of photography if you've never collected one yourself?" So this is, you know, and you should all know who are the best photographers. Because as a photographer, you should know who's doing something special. Yet we're the ones who don't do it. Like, you know, if you wanted to try and buy Peter Dombrovskis picture now, they're very expensive. You try and buy an Ansel Adams, you know, they're hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know. Now, yet when he was alive, you could buy him for $3,000 or $2,500. So this is your industry, but who do you collect now? Ignacio, he's I talked to him, and he's collecting, and so is Danny collecting. But start collecting, because one day, you know, it's one of the best investments. Invest in your own art. Plus, it's really good to bless people when you go. I love going to exhibitions and buying a print of somebody. And now the things I'll look for in a person is, I'm not interested in all that arty farty world, you know, the Emperor's Clothes Club. I'll go and see if someone's really passionate, and someone's really committed to the journey, you know, and the work's good. And then if they are, then I'd love to get some of their work, because you know, it's great to sow back into lives as people sowed into me when I started.
It's a bit of a case of what goes around comes around. Like I went in last week to a friend's exhibition and fell in love with a print and bought it and pick it up on the weekend. And there's some kind of spirit and power behind the intention of a work that just really speaks to me. And I just it's just felt wrong not to support that in any way I could. And it's a bit of a case of what goes around comes around, Ken. I think you're right. It's not something that crosses people's mind initially when they're trying to set up themselves, that investing in other people's work, but it's a beautiful cycle that comes back around in ways sometimes unexpected.
Yeah. Well, look, when I'm selling prints, I don't actually sell a print. I sell the process. I tell them, this is what limited edition photography is about. This is how it's processed. This is how it's done. This is all the different materials behind it, and this is what it's all about, you know. And I've done the limited edition book, and you know, that book in 200 years time, it'll be there. Now, if you had a limited edition book of Ansel Adams, of 8 of his best work with the stories on an archival process, what would that be worth today? Millions of dollars. Yeah, we know this. Yet how many limited edition books have we collected? And now I'm doing them now, and I'm doing other photographers because I'm doing it because I want to collect their work. And so I'm going to do a limited edition book for them because, you know, I want to have one of their books, because you can't afford to buy every picture of every photographer you like. And, you know, so what a wonderful way to collect, getting collections.
There's another way. It's not quite the same, Ken, but I've certainly done it. And this could be a way to make it more accessible to some people, is approach people whose work you love and offer to do a print swap. That's a way that over sort of 15 years I've managed to collect and create relationships with other really amazing photographers that I probably wouldn't have had access to otherwise by just offering.
Well, that can happen too, because the thing is, when it comes to painters, they're different. You see, they understand, like when say Pro Hart died, or Arthur Boyd, or any of the great painters, when they die, they don't just leave their own paintings. They leave collections of people who inspired them along the way. We've got to get more of that in photography, because photographers all think, well, I can do that, I'm going to go and do that. And they all end up turning up at the same place trying to do the same old thing. So, you know, anyhow, it's, you know, just another thing. And I just think it's really great to encourage each other, but we need to do more printing. Like, you know, there's lots of people doing workshops, there's lots of people doing all sorts of stuff. I do workshops occasionally because I feel a responsibility to put information back into the industry that I love, that's come from the front lines of actually doing it. Unfortunately, there's too many teachers out there right now who are teaching from knowledge they've gained from the internet and all this sort of stuff. And look, some of that information on the internet is just rubbish. You know, it's like, we're doing a new book with a friend of mine, Leo Meyer, at present, who's probably one of those brilliant photographic minds in this country. And so most of you guys don't even know him out there, but he's the most brilliant man I've ever met. And we're writing this book, Photography Made Simple. It's just a small companion. And as we're writing it, we're debunking so many things that people take as gospel, and they keep sprouting all the time, which is totally incorrect. And, you know, I'm just fascinated because people keep saying things that aren't necessarily correct, but it becomes truth if people say it long enough. I don't know. So, so I think make sure you print your work, because Vincent Cerf, you know, who was the co-founder of the internet, said not long ago that unless we begin to print our work, we'll be known as the black hole generation, because all of our technology, you know. And look, I'm doing a few workshops now. We're doing one on stitching. I'm going to do one also on, because stitching, I can really learn I know how to do it from years of experience and with moving subjects, but also digital asset management. Like most photographers, the way they manage their assets, they've got hard drives here, hard drives there, and it's a nightmare, you know, and at any moment, their whole story can be just gone. You know, so there's things that once they're simplified, we need to make sure we look after these things. You know?
I got a box of Luke's hard drives sitting in my house. I've heard someone make a joke, but it really speaks to that. Like, imagine if some asteroid went past a planet that magnetized all the world's hard drives, we'd lose a generation's worth of photography overnight.
Right, yeah.
It's quite a potent thought, actually.
Well, I have hard copy pictures in albums. So I still do albums, you know, like that's one of the things, like, when's the last time, do you have a photo album? You know, now the thing is, how many photographers have photo albums? Now there's how many when's the last time you saw a portfolio? You know, everybody wants, like, as soon as you start showing, like, people come to me with their laptops or their iPhones, and I get nervous going, oh my God, here we go. You know, it's like, and whack, 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 and whack, 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 and they just overwhelm you with digital fodder at a low level. You know, you're intending to make sales like that. If you don't want to make sales, do that, because there's no connection. There's no tactility to it. There's no feel. So when you start to show a portfolio, people go, wow, you know, and what are these? And sometimes when I show a portfolio to young generation, they say, what are these? I say, they're prints. You know, we used to do a lot of these in our day, you know, and it's like as if they're seeing something for the first time, you know. So this is, and you know, then you show them a big print, roll it out and say, this is what they look like when they're bigger. And I call that the wow factor. And they go, wow. You know, so, and look, in this time of COVID, we've never been busier. Like, you know, we've just been flat out, like, people, because they can't travel, what a beautiful way to get a beautiful picture and put it on their wall, and they can travel every day. So there's a huge market out there for photography. And look, I'm always willing to share whatever knowledge I have to encourage more people to get out there and exhibit their work and have their own stores, because I think it's a huge market. And fortunately now there's a lot more people doing it, but it's a big market and there's plenty of room. And never be concerned about a competition. There is no such thing. If you're worried about the competition, then you've got the inadequacy in yourself. I think it's great when I look at some of your photos and some of the people I see around me, up and coming, I think, man, that is really good. And I think, man, I'm gonna have to do something, you know, like that, or, you know, not like that shot, but that encourages me to do something better, not to copy him, but think, man,
inspiration,
yeah, great idea. And never speak down about another photographer. You know, a lot of photographers, well, yeah, well, he just does Photoshop, he does this and all that. Look, we're not the judge and executioner of other people. If you're that sort of person, then you've got the problem. Like, never speak negatively about another person. You know, like, someone rang me up once about Peter Litt when he sold a picture for some large amount of money and millions of dollars. And they asked me, they said, so do you think he really sold? I said, well, it was feasible. Why not? You know, painting himself a lot of money. And they said, and then the guy said, what do you think about that? I said, good luck to him. I reckon I would be really happy if I sold one for that. And she said, you know, you're the first photographer who's actually said that. Everybody else said, oh, it's just a gimmick. Oh, he's just this, he's just that. And I said, well, you know what? They're just jealous. I said, look, don't worry about what other people are doing. Just get on with your story. Everyone's story is just as valid as each other's story. So always, you know, don't get caught into trying to be the best photographer here, the best photographer there. There's no such thing. We're all just telling a story, and time will tell whose story was best received. Blah, blah. Now, here's another stitch. So he's stitching with waterfalls. Those with Ignacio on that one. Yeah, that was a fun trip. But so he's stitching waterfalls. Now this...
Bit of fun keeping your lens dry on that other shot, Ken.
I do, but I always have umbrellas. I always carry an umbrella. You should always carry an umbrella and a cotton T-shirt. That's, you know, people laugh at my colourful umbrellas, but I always have them because you shield it, and then just the moment, bang, pull it out. And so I was able to do stitches without getting any of those problems. Now, this one was shot on film, and this, like, I was probably one of the first people in to photograph this area back in 1980. So I've had a love relationship with this area for a long time. But this one, you had to camp there, wait there. And, you know, I was the only person there just sitting there waiting. Now, a lot more people are going to go there in time, but that's King George Falls, you know, and it's sunrise. And so And now that's another one stitching out of the helicopter.
Oh, were you Ignacio on this one?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because he shot a similar sort of angle.
Yeah, so
I was after a stitch. I didn't want just that shot. I wanted a stitch because I wanted the connection with the ocean. So you can just see that little band of ocean through there. So, and then this one was in Finland. This is like really spooky. That's a stitch again, and that's about looking for separation between the different. It's very important to get separation in your images or between the different levels so that you can get the sense of the third dimension. So just something to look out for. And as you know, when it's minus 30 degrees and, and your camera's freezing up and everything's freezing up, and my guide fell down inside a tree and I had to try and get him out because he couldn't get out because he showed, everything's going, but we got the shot. That's the main thing. So, so this is the funny one. This is down in Tasmania, and I was at this is before your time. I was down there lecturing a whole bunch of photographers, and that's as you'd know, that's Fationay Peninsula down that way.
Yeah, Fationay Lodge jetty.
Yeah, the jetty. And so, is that tree's no longer there? Is it? Someone knocked it down.
Yeah, and also they've actually put a railing along the jetty now too. So for safety reasons,
yeah,
so
big wire
it
railing.
doesn't look anywhere near as picturesque as it has in the past. It looks quite new there too.
So it was, because what happened is we're doing this talk about photography, and the question was asked, "Well, Ken, what's the hardest part about photography?" And I just said, "Well, the hardest part about photography is getting out of bed and getting on with it rather than talking about it." And oh yeah. And so at lunchtime, I looked out and I saw this jetty and that tree. Oh man, there's potential here. I reckon this could be a good sunrise. So the next morning, that night, a bunch of photographers all had a few drinky winkies, and the next morning they were all sleeping. And so I was out there photographing this. This was about 20 minutes before sunrise. And so finally, right at the last minute, just when the light was going, only one other photographer saw me down there and went, "Oh my God," and tried to get a shot. But so the lesson was the hardest part about photography is getting out of bed, and they were all in bed while I got this shot. And this shot's made me hundreds of thousands of dollars. So sleep is highly overrated. So here's an astronaut.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Never seen one like that.
Look
from
at
here.
those clouds in the back there. Wow.
Well, yeah, the clouds coming in, but that was a 6-shot stitch.
Jeez.
Very high resolution, and I haven't used any painting light. I've used moonlight, and so it's all using the natural light. And I love the moon because it looks like a sun, And so, but
it's very ethereal look when you shoot under moonlight.
Yeah, I like it. And then you've got
there's a lot of skill to capture this in camera, Ken.
Oh, look, not really. You just
you got to know what you're doing.
No, just good to have a stitching head. Stitching, like if good stitching head. Well, one day we'll do a talk on stitching. Stitching is a great thing.
Do you have a stitching head you recommend, though, Ken?
Well, there's a few. Like Sarui make a good one, which is a reasonably priced one. The other one that I like is Nodal Ninja. They make a really good one. And then another one is Really Right Stuff. But
yeah, I've got this.
Yeah, so the thing is, you need multi-row, but you need something that also has clicks on it, so that you can, for trickier stitches, you can do degrees, so that you can put that information into your program like PT GUI, so it makes it easier for it to do the more difficult stitches. And so this was shot before when you could do that years ago. This is an old shot,
the
like
classic,
everybody.
that one. Yeah.
When we first shot that, then everybody went looking for those trees, So. And this is, again, just talking about, third dimension. Like, to me, this is a prophetic shot about how God feels about the division in our nation and the plight of our indigenous people. The biggest shame in our nation is what's happening in our indigenous remote communities, and not just remote communities, all over. And so this, for me, I call it Tears for a Nation. This shot is sold out. You see, we're doing a lot of resales. We just bought back a few prints now. They're hard to buy back sometimes. And people haven't woken up yet. I probably shouldn't be telling people this, but, I can buy and trade pictures and make more money of that than the stock market, because I know that area. So sometimes I bought one picture in a garage sale for $20 and sold it for $35,000 in 3
Merry
weeks.
Christmas.
So, that's the reality of photography, and most people don't even know about it, So, and it's better than probably painting market. And really, I wasn't going to sell that painting, but I had to sell it because it was the guy, it was his home village, and it was, so in the end, I thought, oh, well. So this is what I'm on about now, Walk a While. We have a foundation called Walk a While. And, it came out when I was out at Uluru, I said, listen, guys, what's with all these rules and regulations? Because, I'm pretty lucky because I know a lot of the people out there, well, over years of relationship. And they said, well, look, Ken, we see all these people coming out with all their fancy camera gear, and they come out and they do all their stuff and they come and take photos. But what do they put back? And they said, our kids don't have access to this technology. They haven't got a chance to have this sort of stuff. And I went, that's a very valid point. So we started up out in a remote community called Haasbluff, or Kunji community, and we got a building from the government, which wasn't being used, and we started a technology centre out there, which is doing recording music, doing photography, cinematography, and basically whatever they want to learn, we're teaching them. And some of the stuff we're getting out there is mind-blowing. Some of the music is like we've found the new gurmal, like the music is so good. Now, this is going to mean jobs for these people, and we need to get more Indigenous people in the things that we do, because they are amazing storytellers and they have connection. You don't have to tell them about the spiritual side of things. They just get that straight away. They understand there's something bigger going on than them, and they connect in a whole new level. And when I take people out there, I'm not out there to tell them anything. I just say, spend some time with the mates, and they always come back richer from that experience. And so we're out there doing that. And look, the government, it can't do it. The process is the problem. The process, there's so much money, $35 billion being spent a year, and it's not getting to the Aboriginal people. It's 90% of it goes in administration or setting up the process. So you're pouring all this money in this funnel at the top, and only, if you're lucky, 10% gets down to the actual ground level of the Indigenous people. And so, look, that's the way it is, and you can't take on the process because we're talking big money being involved there. And I don't believe they actually want things changed because there's too many people making money out of it. So rather than try and take that on, what we're trying to do is we're being privately funded. We're working with the community and saying, okay, what is it you want to do that's going to have a sustainable outcome? Okay, you want to learn technology for your kids. You want to create these things. Okay, but are they going to be wanting to make, tourism and do things like that? So we're going to be starting tours out there soon, very small numbers. You guys will be invited to come on out and see it. This is some of the most spectacular country, but you'll be coming out there and being welcomed by the Aboriginal people, and they'll take you out and you'll be welcome to shoot whatever you want. And, they're talking about some of the most spectacular landscapes. And so this is how it should have been at Uluru. But when you're doing that, you'll know that you're putting back into that community, because you'll be getting guides there to go out with you to make sure that, looking after things. But also you're hearing the stories, and they'll take you to some special little spots that you wouldn't never find unless you spent lots of time there. So we're going to try and restart a tourism model that's actually bringing the Indigenous people in, creating real jobs. Because, the Twiggy Forest model of trying to turn everybody into a happy little white person or into a happy little miner with a mortgage, it's not them. They want connection to land. And if you try and pull Indigenous people away from their land, it's like chopping their arms off.
Yeah.
And so we need to create real jobs in communities, and that's what we're doing out there. Now, with Walk a While, this is a shot David Oliver took. He's a lovely guy, great photographer. But, people take photos, but what do we put back? Often we're just voyeurs on the outside. Sometimes I put my camera down, like I'm out there quite regularly, but I don't have time to take photos sometimes because there's more important issues to be dealing with, like kids' lives and things like that, and creating opportunities. Now, I will get my time, but, it's more important to be being part of the solution. And now in this photo, these are kids when I started years ago. This was over 15 years ago. And this is when we first started realizing that they really loved their photography. Now when we're out, we're going to go there after Christmas. But this is what happens when we go out and do an introductory course. And I'd really like thank Panasonic and ISO, because they've been fantastic in giving us a monitor, and Epson too. And Panasonic have been great the way they just give us cameras to go out there. And, you know, this is amazing. But look at how many kids we have. So we've got to try and get a bus now, because the saddest part is when you're going out taking photos, you've got to say, no, you can't come and you can. Now, the government spent $550 million doing a Royal Commission into why there's so many Indigenous kids in jails in the Northern Territory. And you know what? At the end of that, nothing's changed. And the reason is, why are there so many Indigenous kids in jails? They're bored out of their brains. They've got nothing to do. They've got no access to technology. And this is what we need to do, create things in their community that they love doing, that they can start telling their stories to keep them active and keep them out of trouble. So this is the centre right there. We've got the building on the right. The government have given us that. And in that, we've got accommodation for up to 5 or 6 people. But also we've got all the technology for the kids to come in and the young adults to learn about Photoshop. And we've got some really interesting people behind us. You know, there's different major singing artists who are going to come out and work with the people. Sonny are coming out to see what we're doing because they've seen some of the results of the music. And, you know, we've got some well-known movie people coming out wanting to help them develop a film industry as well. Now, one of the ideas they had is building a cross on top of this mountain, which is like a volcanic core. And on the top of that mountain, you've got one of those spectacular views of 3 of the highest mountains around, Mount Zeil, Mount Sonder, and Haspler. So it's the perfect platform. Now, it's not my cross, it's their cross, and this has a spiritual significance to them because it's where 4 Indigenous evangelists first spread the gospel, and Easter have a big celebration there where they all come and sing. And they asked me, because I'm out there with them, they said, Ken, can you help us build a cross on the mountain? I say, well, you don't need my help. It's your land. You can do what you want. And they said, well, it's not that easy. I went, well, sure it is. And so they kept asking me, and some of the elders and the women had talked to me about their children having dreams about this cross being up there and with a ladder going up into heaven and angels going up and down and all these things they're telling me. And I said, well, why are you going to have a cross there? And they said, well, look, we want a place where people can come, where they can pray, they can meditate, you know, and just, you know, just it's a beacon of hope for us. And I went, okay, I'll help you. And I must admit, I'm thinking a couple of 4x2s, a couple of bags of cement, and we'll get that little thing up there. But just the way it's evolved and by them, and it's without doubt their will, because Lands Council, I realised why Aboriginals don't own land, councils do. And Aboriginals can't do anything on their land unless they get Lands Council's permission. You know, in all these areas out in Northern Territory, they don't own their houses. They don't even own the land their houses are on. They have to pay rent on their own land. Like, really, it's so out of control out there. Anyhow, the Lands Council tried to do everything they could to try and stop it. And they asked everybody, is this someone else's idea? And they said, listen, it's our idea. In the end, after 2 years of them trying to find someone who wasn't, they had to give permission. So we've raised about $1.4 million. That thing is, the track's all the way up the top. We're in the process of building the cross right now. It'll be going up early next year. And there'll be a big celebration when it's finished, because all the tribes are going to be coming from far and wide because it's their vision. And they're going to have a big sing-along, you know. And so this is a really good thing, but it's going to bring tourism out there. This is why I thought would help, because it's like, this is like Christ the Redeemer in Australia, right in the heart of Australia. And, you know, people, we've kept quiet about it because as soon as you mention a cross, people want to get their opinion. Oh, you can't do that. You're scarring up the countryside. Listen, it's their country. If they want to build it, they can build what they want, you know, and stop getting our attitude shouldn't be put on them, you know. And so they're really excited because it's getting close, and the government have had nothing to do with this. The Land Council can take no pride, and every enterprise that comes from this, because we're going to be putting in glamping facilities, so we can bring photography groups out there, and you'll have access to some of the most spectacular country out. And even with the cross, it's got live solar power, so at night it'll just come like float in space. and we're actually going to have a situation where we can turn it on and off for astrophotography. That's, you know, I asked him, is that okay? They said, yeah, sure, why not, you know. So it's going to create, now it's going to be great because it means that that road will have to get opened up. We just spoke to the tourism in Northern Territory, and they're blown away that this has happened and they didn't know about it, because we look, I took Mel Gibson out there one night because he's a mate from school days. We went out there just from a break from the set on the movie, you know, Hacksaw Ridge. And so we're just going out there, and because he wanted to find out what I was up to, he'd heard about it. And we went out there with him and his girlfriend. Anyhow, we had the time of our life because the Aboriginals didn't care who he was. They said, hey, Mel, Mad Max. And he just loved it that he could just be himself. And she was really lovely, Rose. She just loved the Aboriginals, and he ate witchetty grubs and he ate kangaroo tail. He got right into it.
Wow.
And so he had a ball. But while we're there, there's a story circulating all around the world. Ken Duncan and Mel Gibson are building a cross for the sequel of the Passion of the Christ movie. ABC, they did this big story. Now we're out there having a blast. We come in back into town, and all of a sudden my phone, because there's no phone access out there, is going blip, 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 blip. And we've got all these newspapers and radio stations finding out about the cross for the, see, this is the media. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, you know. And so I ended up having to go back to them and saying, listen, what is wrong with you people? Why can't you believe that Aboriginals have dreams and visions and hopes for their people? Why do you have to try and attribute it to some white people? You know, what is wrong with you? You know, so that's why we haven't sort of said much about it, but it's going to happen. And it's a beautiful platform. When you get up there to look at you got view for 360 degrees. And so when you've got Uluru trying to close itself, here you're going to have a place where you're going to be open and welcome to come out there, and you'll be greeted, you know, because they want you to come out and share their land, but also learn a bit more about their culture, because they'll be doing cultural tours, we'll be doing photography tours, we're doing art tours, music tours. So this creates real jobs for the people there. So try and, you know, now I'm not out there to build crosses. This is just a project that came up. But we are going to look at building tourism because that's what they want built. And if they want to know more about that, go to walkawhile.org.au. Now, the word Walk a While, it's a foundation. It's all tax deductible, because what we've got to do now is raise funds. We need to raise $150,000 to have 2 teachers out there for a year. Now, we're still going, and we've been funding this for a while, but we're doing it privately so that we can just get on with it, because, and, you know, we've already got some money coming in, which is fantastic. But in the end, we won't have to fund this, because we'll start doing tours and things like that, which will raise income streams, because everything with the foundation has got to have a sustainability in the end. It can't be just always wanting money. And so the same with any jobs we're creating. They're jobs that are going to be really creative, that are sustainable, making good income streams. And so walk a while comes from the expression, if you really want to know me, be prepared to walk a while with me. So that's where it comes from. And now that's Billy. Now, I refuse to see another generation of young kids grow up without hope. And unless we do something, and look, what's happening out there with Walk a While, we're really kicking some goals. And I believe if we get it right in this community, we can be working with other communities at whatever they want. If they want to build crosses, don't come to me this time. Something else, whatever. But, you know, whatever it is that they want to do, that they are willing to do and stick at, then we'll try and help raise up that awareness. But I think tourism's the best one, and photography is one of the better ones, where we can open up some new areas, not big numbers, because, you know, we want to keep it boutique. And this just goes to show you fat people can jump. Like, that's me with the kids, you know. See, I'm still jumping all right. So, you know, still plenty of spark in the old fella. And Ray's come out there, Ray Martin. He's a lovely guy, Ray. He's just loves his photography. He's like a tragic photographer. Yeah, tragically good. He's very good. But he's come out and seen what's happening out there. Now, look, Ray's been in charge of the Reconciliation Council. He's got Indigenous blood, and he's now joined us on the board because, you know, he thinks that the same as me. If we get it right out here with this community, we can then start getting this right in other communities and creating real hope and futures for the kids and the young people, so they don't get caught up in all this bad stuff. Now, you know, the thing, the young kid who got shot by the policeman out at Mount Liebig, you know, I don't know if you heard about the cases being referred to the federal court, which is great, so that whatever happens. But, you know, that kid was originally born out in this area, and he moved to Mount Liebig, and, you know, he got into trouble because they're just bored. They got nothing to do. They got no hope. They're just collecting dole money. And so they get into trouble. And that kid got into, you know, stealing stuff and stuff like that. And the next minute, you know, he escapes, and the story just gets worse. And in the end, he gets shot. You know, like, we've got to do something. And I really believe we can do something to break this cycle. And this is us out of the center. This is Andy, who's a very talented music guy who's just been recording some of the music. These are some of the gear we've got out there now. This is Kieran on the left and Shane. Now, this Shane is like the new Gurmal, mate. This guy, his songs are mind-blowing. Wow. This is where we're doing the recording. We've got another room where we do the recording. We're also doing online learning with the people when they want to learn something. We're doing online courses to equip them with knowledge. And this is, you know, ISO, thank goodness, giving us some nice monitors. And this is me out there with some of the kids. Look, these girls, these two young girls, they are great photographers. They are really amazing. You know, they take over my camera and do a better job than I do, I'll tell you. And this is some of the old fellas who had the vision for the cross, and his wife. He's just passed away now, and he's probably one of the most amazing men you ever meet in your life. And he said to me before he died, said, Ken, whatever you do, get that cross up for my people. He said, I won't be here in person because I'm going away. But he said, I'll be there in spirit. So just get it up. And I said, well, easy for you to say. You're going to cash out and leave me with a job, you know. So I can say that to him because he's a mate. But what do you say to someone when they're about to die? And here's another one who I've got behind me. And this is one of my little mates, you know, who's, look, she just needs hope. She just needs opportunities. I mean, education, everybody says it's all about education. But with education, you need to have jobs to come back to, because, you know, some of the kids come back educated from Melbourne and Sydney, but there's no jobs, and they want to stay connected to land. So they've got all this education and no jobs. So we're about to create some real jobs out there. We're starting to employ our first couple shortly, and they'll just multiply in large numbers as tourism opens up, and it'll be tourism where you actually get to walk with Indigenous people. And this is a friend, like, this is an example, this is walkable, but this is an example of the music. This is a man who's in prison. So sorry to cut it off short, it goes on a little while, but when you hear that on a proper sound system, I sent that to Sonny and they just went mind-blowing. Now,
I was getting shivers down my spine on that one, Ken, and that was only just from a taster of it. Wow.
So look, we just need, the government's not going to solve the problem. You know, the thing is, the process is the problem. I went and saw Ken Wyatt, and he's a nice enough bloke, you know, but the thing is, the only way you're going to change things is by going to the need and saying, okay, what can we do? The process can't do it. And, you know, right now they're going to try, and Ken White said with Pat Turner, they said, we're going to work with the coalition of the peaks and to change things. And people say, well, who are the coalition of the peaks? These are all those government bodies who are failing now. So what makes them think that by working with them is going to change anything? You know, they can't jump 5 foot and they're all of a sudden going to try and jump 7 foot. You know, so it's not, you know, the only way to bridge the gap is by people beginning to walk together. So we encourage people, get along to walk a while, try and help wherever you can, because I think we, the people, can make the difference. And then finally, hopefully the government will catch up. And so just go to walkawhile.org.au. Now, we don't spend a lot of time now doing lots of posts and everything like that because we're too busy just getting on with the work, and no one on Walk a While gets paid. So we're not there for the money. And a lot of my time goes in doing this now. And, you know, but for me, I'm more interested now in the new generation. With my life, I've only got so much left. I'm still pretty active and everything like that. And I'm not going anywhere in a hurry. But, you know, with the life I have left, I want to be able to make a difference in those areas that really need to be dealt with. And this is one of the biggest areas in our country. So that's probably enough. Yeah. So
Wow.
that's so that's any questions or anything like that. That's I've been talking too much. You poor people out there. I hope I haven't put you to sleep.
Anyone on Zoom too, feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask Ken a question directly. We haven't done that for quite a long time, but you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, it's such a interesting position that you're in, Ken. You know, like and time in your life in terms of just that. You know, every moment's precious that you got left as you sort of start getting older. You start not taking things for granted, and you know, why not do what you can to make the world a better place than you left it. And
no one knows how much time they've got. No one, you know. And the thing is, each day, just live it to the most. And you know, it's not about. To me, it's never been about taking photographs. It's been about using it as a tool to look at life. And, you know, on the way, you see things that you need to do to be a change, not just photograph it and say, oh, look at that. You know, often God's trying to get our attention to do something about it. And we can all do, like, even when we decided to help the Aboriginals build the cross, man, we copped so much flack. You know, in the end, I said, well, I'm not going to worry about it. We'll just keep going, you know. And in life, whenever you try and stand up for anything, you'll get people who want to have opinions, and you know they'll all have their opinions. But don't worry about those. Just get on with it. Just love them, let them go, and just keep going. Because the only thing worthwhile is what you leave behind in what you've given to others. You know? And that's why it's very important in the industry to put back, to always share knowledge with other people. Don't, you know. In life, you'll meet for some photographers that are only too willing to share. For me, they're real photographers. People who aren't willing to share, there's a problem with them. They think they're trying to do a party trick, or they've got something that they think is something special. Look, when you share, it's iron sharpens iron. The better the competition gets, the better you get. But if you're worried about that, then maybe you should take up some other career, like bowling or something like that. Anyhow, any other questions out there? Or?
We've had a question on the Zoom chat just asking about if you have any of the limited edition book left. I'm not sure which book.
Yeah, we've still got some, but we're really keeping them. We haven't done. We've had a gentleman who wants to take up the whole concept and do it, but we're just gently. Yeah, they're still available. So they go online. We aren't doing any big marketing because we don't want them to sell out too quickly, because we're looking at soon doing a second book, and already the second book will be pre-sold. I mean, all the people who bought the first one want to buy the second one. So we're confident with our supply line now, because we just about killed our guy who was doing it. And Memento have been behind it. They've been good, but they've got their supply lines really worked up. But we're about to launch a second one in the series. And I want to do 10 different photographers that I really admire, because I want to collect their work. And what a beautiful way to do it. And this is something, yeah, so go online and you'll see them there. But later on, we might do something on it. But there's only 300 of the book to sell. And we've got some big plans coming up, which I can't say too much about.
Well, I remember walking into the opposite Memento, Ken, and seeing one of your large format inkjet limited edition books, and it was, oh my God, I don't think I'd ever seen anything quite like it ever. In terms of something that's collectible, that sort of caliber, and that kind of attention to detail and the profiling and color it was just ripping through every page. And as much as it sounds like I'm blowing a trumpet, I know what I'm looking at, and I've seen a lot of things in my life. And I think it was one of those ones that was, it was pretty high. It was like a $4,500 one, I think, but it was one of your peak ones. But it was just incredible what you've done with Memento to use the best of what technology can offer and produce something of absolute caliber like that. I was gobsmacked, kid.
Well, look, the thing is, they cost about $3,000 just to make, okay? But there's no compromise when you do something like that. And look, it came about when I was commissioned by a sheikh to go and shoot Abu Dhabi. This sheikh rings me up, and I probably should mention which one, but anyhow, he rings up and he says, I'm sheikh so-and-so and so-and-so. And I go, oh yeah, Jacko, shake the other leg. So I thought it was one of my friends being an idiot, And he said, no, I'm really am a sheikh. I'm get out of here, Jacko. Yeah, but he had like this Oxford accent, Oxford English accent. Okay. After a while, he just wasn't relenting. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, look, I am. And then I thought, oh my gosh. I said, oh, I'm sorry. I've got some weird friends. And anyhow, so he commissioned me to go over and shoot Abu Dhabi, which was a real fun thing to do. And then he wanted me to do a book. We did a trade book, but he wanted me to do a book for royalty. And so I said, oh, okay. And for me, he's just a normal bloke like anybody else. And he liked that, I wasn't really, he's a lovely person, but I just charge him what I charge anybody else. And he wanted this book. I said, look, I'd love to do a book. I got an idea to do the ultimate book. So we did the ultimate book. We did it with gilding gold, using the Hanamortar paper, using the ultrachrome inks, and then also spraying each page, and then gilding the edges, and then putting white gold corners on it with rubies and diamonds on it. Like, we just went a whole log.
Oh my God.
I've got one of those books, but because that was part of I ordered one of the books. And so that's where we learned how to do that book. And then I decided it was, certain people passed away, good friends of mine, and they hadn't left, or even Peter Nabroskis, he did some amazing work, but he never left a properly done book like this. Imagine if you had an inkjet printed book of his done to this quality. Like, in 200 years' time, this book will still be perfect. Yeah. With him signing off the color proofing of the pictures. Because, I reckon even with Ansel Adams and Peter, if he was alive today, when he saw some of the printing quality of some of his work, he'd just go, oh my gosh, what have they done to the shadows, or what have they done to this? So for me, I thought, here's a chance for a photographer to tell their story properly before they leave planet Earth and say, this is how I wanted it to look. This is the story behind the picture. And because a real photographer spends a lifetime getting a collection of work, why not leave the story properly told? So when you're talking about $4,500, in time, these books will be worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, because you're going to have a life work of a photographer. Now, I'm going to have 10 of these books, so I'm going to leave my daughter. Now, I've told her she's not allowed to sell mine. If she's got to sell mine, she must be in really hard times, so she needs to look at her life. But I'd like to leave her something like that, because here she's going to have a collection of some of the great photographers who are capturing things that are not even going to be here, some of these things, And, so this is what I decided to do this book. I did my one first, but I'm looking forward to doing others. And, as soon as you both do a book, I'll be the first to buy your books. So I'd love you to have your books. So, because to me, you've got a life that you're going to, like, how much time do you go taking photos? For me, I take out young people with me, or young ladies or guys. They come out, they want to come out photographing. I say, sure, come along. And often I'll just laugh because they're so enthusiastic and so ready. And I just laugh because I think, man, you got so many sunrises and so many sunsets to catch up, on this journey. And that's the truth. Real photographers, they just passionate. And I love all these young people and young women, especially all these new women in the art. They bring some amazing stuff. So
That sort of dovetails nicely into a question we had on YouTube, which is, what advice would you give to someone starting out in landscape photography and wanting to get into the industry? Is there kind of like a sort of a nice sort of summary soundbite or so that you have on that?
don't go to RMIT. Oh, look, you can go there. They can teach you a lot of technical stuff. But you know what? A lot of people treat landscape with total disrespect. They say, oh, landscape's not an art. You know, it is as much an art as anything, because the art of photography is seeing the shot and actually capturing it. It's just the craft. You know, like people, you know, like be careful of the art world. You know, they've tried to hijack art. And some of the things I see sold as so-called photography, I just think you're kidding, you know. So it's so if you want to do it, start doing some prints, do some prints. I think we've ended.
Oh no, we can go back into sharing. I just thought, seeing as we're talking, we'll
No, we just got your face full screen now, Ken.
yeah, that's all right.
Okay, well, I'll just escape this then, and I should be there. That's fine. Yeah. So look, the best way to do it is don't listen to what other people say. Just do it. Just get on with it. Print your work. Get a portfolio. You've got to believe in yourself. Stop listening to what everybody else is saying. The best way, and even of this awards thing. Look, I'm not one for these awards. You know, like they do not pay the bills, and you know, you end up trying to photograph for awards, and that's not the real world. You know. The thing is, get out. If you want to do awards, do it if you want to, but that's not going to pay the bills. What you need to do is get your work out to the people. And so get a portfolio. Don't just do the website thing. Make sure you get out and see people and show them your work and show them portfolios. And they'll look at it and go, oh, wow. And then get ready to sell them work. Do exhibitions. Start thinking creatively where you can do exhibitions. For me, photography is about taking and making photographs. It's not about all these other things we're having to do to get by. Photography and a photographer and their story is very valid, but be careful who you listen to. When I look at some of these photos that are being won by awards, I just think, what are they thinking about? Like, you know, some of them I just think, if, you know, be careful who you allow input into your life, because the thing is, often the people who are trying to tell people who's good and who's bad have never succeeded themselves in life. And yet they've set themselves up as some, you know, gatekeeper of photography. So get on with your own journey. That's what I had to do. I had to stand out and go for it myself, because at the time when I was doing photography, the art world said photography is not really an art, it's just a hobby. And they treated it that way. You know, Max Dupain and all the David Moores, they couldn't make a living out of selling work. You know, the galleries would make something out of it. They had to do commercial work to pay the bills. And so I thought there's got to be a way. And so that's what I did. I went out, took photos, came back and decided to start up my own gallery, went around showing my work, and it was successful. And, you know, and the thing is, now the galleries looked at that, and then other photographers are doing it, and this amazing people, and Peter Lick's gone and done it all overseas, and people have realized, oh my gosh, there is a market. And so now the art world's going, oh, we must control it. So let's start the Arty Farty Club, you know, let's like try and put parameters. Oh, you know, they would consider me a commercial photographer. And then they'd say, oh, this is a fine art photographer. There's no such thing as fine art. There's fine art and crap art? There's just art. And just put it out there. Let the people say what is good, because unfortunately the art world have got into the Emperor's Clothes Club, and they can sell it for a fortune. Good luck to them if they can do that. That's up to them. But time will tell what real art was. And, you know, one of the big art galleries in Sydney just recently asked, you know, or in New York, contacted me, asked me, well, would I like to do an exhibition in these spaces? I said, oh, look, not really, it's okay. Oh, but you know, we can do this. I said, listen, that's all great, but I don't need that right now. I'm okay. I'm just loving telling my story. And so stay true to your story. And the thing is, one of these galleries, and I said, listen, do you consider Frank Hurley a great artist? Oh, well, he was a commercial photographer. Really? Like, that is such a, like, Frank Hurley is one of my heroes, some of the shots he did. You know? And so you've got to be careful about the pretentious art world, you know. Now, I'm sure if you want to go that way, go that way. But that's where the RMITs and all these different courses, they never teach about landscape. I have so many people coming to me and saying, Ken, I want to do landscape photography, but the people at the teachers at RMIT said there's no real living in landscape photography. And I said, well, gee, really? Like, hello, that photo, the power of one, has probably made us over $600,000 or $700,000, one shot. So, there's no money in that, So, not that you do it for money, but the thing is, you've got to make money to be able to afford to go and do what you got to do, and also to be able to do things, spend time doing things that you're really passionate about with the Aboriginals. So, go for it. And if you need some help, just let us know. And I don't mind helping people who help themselves, but people who just take knowledge and do nothing with it, so.
Nice to share, and thanks so much, Ken, for those insights, and certainly very kind of direct in your views there. But it's also, great to have a different perspective on it, with all the experience that you've had over your career as well.
Well, look, now it's changing, and the thing is, I hope, but just get on with your own story, and you've got to have faith in your own ability. And for me, I love my clients because they are the ones who have enabled me. And they're the people that I listen to best. And, often it's the common people who are much more in touch with the reality. It's like the Emperor's Clothes is the classic one. Like, people can sell you anything, and they can tell you the big story about it. But the thing is does it really touch you? For me, I'm not trying to show how great Ken Duncan is. I'm trying to show how great the creator is. And I'm trying to bring into people's homes something which will bring them peace, bring them balance. That when they look at it, if they've got a problem, they think, there's something out there bigger than me. That's why, for me, it's important to bring something very normal and out of the camera as you can without adulterating it too much. Like, someone had a line that turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. For me, I'm into shooting the extraordinary and just bring it to people as best you can. Now, I get it with the Photoshop and all that sort of stuff. Go for it if you want to do that. And that's another art in itself. It's more illustration. But for me, there's got to be showing the beauty of something. Try and bring it back as best you can so someone can really experience it just like you did. And there's a big market for that. Now, the arty-farty club will say, you need to do this, you need to stick a nude person, or you need to do this, or have it out of focus totally and just have blurs everywhere. Now, like I just love seeing some of the stuff. It's very different, some of it.
I guess everyone has their own approach to photography and what it means to them. And
look, if they like it, that's it. And, and sometimes that works. Like, I've seen some really interesting out of focus shots that look really, so there's no rules and regulations but just be true to yourself and follow your dream. And, and people, if your story is good enough, people will want to be part of it. Passion is your most important thing. Yeah. If you're not passionate about what you're doing, why will anybody else be? So that's the key. For anybody who wants to be a landscape photographer, you just got to give it everything. And, people say they want to do what I've done. I say, well, you can do. Just sell everything you've got and go. Oh, well,
what do you do when you find the passion's waning a little bit? Surely there's been times, I know that every photographer I know has patches where it sort of gets a bit trickier. Is there something you can do to bring yourself out of that, or?
Well, go and talk with some friends who maybe, have got that passion. Go and look for someone who has that passion. And, that if you're lacking, me, I just pray and say, Lord, I've lost my way. What do I mean to be doing? And, it works for me, and there's more important, like the photography to me is not the most important thing, because often I don't spend a lot of time taking photographs. I'm too busy doing the other social justice things. But you know what? All of a sudden, when I've got time to take photos, things happen quickly. Super. It's like God gives me photos very quickly because he knows I've got other things to do. So find a passion, you know, and if it's just about you, that's when you can lose passion, you know, like, why are you taking photos? This is a question, why are you doing it, you know? And just deal with something, what change do you want to see? What can you do with your gift to benefit others? So these are the questions that will help motivate to get that passion. Or if you're lacking, come up and say hello, and Uncle Ken will give you an injection.
I was going to say, you're definitely one of those people that quite capable of that, Ken.
Oh, well, you give it back to me too, you know, so that's the thing. We all need to support each other from time to time, you know. I love some of you guys and what you're doing, you know. You're a great inspiration to me, so look around. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you coming out supporting our first exhibition opening with TLC, Ken. That was a real
That was fun.
that was a real treat. And I remember hearing that story you told about the John Boscus and investing in other people's works and prints, and it actually inspired me to go out and do just that.
Good.
And I'm a little bit fired up to get on the book train after tonight, actually, Ken. And just I've sort of had a few on the pipeline. No, I'm not like Ignacio, where I'm just a machine. I just get right on them. But yeah, I felt like you filled up my tank, Ken. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, you guys, thank you for what you're doing for the industry. So good on you.
Oh, it's been an absolute privilege.
People out there who are listening, so thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah.
Can't see you all, but
Well, look, thanks so much for joining us again, Ken, and there was some absolute amazing advice there. I think that I certainly can identify with a lot of what you said there, and I think it's very it's very good advice for people that are looking to get into photography and find their way forward, I suppose. So yeah, really, we're going to need to get you down to Tassie sometime as well, now that things are starting to open up.
I'll be back there.
Yeah.
I want to go with you. We'll go on an adventure. Okay.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, I think that's probably it. I think we've sort of exhausted questions and everything like that. So look, thanks so much again, Ken, and
My pleasure.
hopefully it's not too long before we can catch up again. And yeah, and all the best with all the good work that you're doing, and we'll catch you again sometime.
Well, look, if they go online, they can get the book, and
Yes,
signed copies there. So if they want to get that, just go online and they can get the new book. I think they'll like that because there's a lot of really good esoteric photo tips in there.
and there's also the virtual launch as well that you've got.
The virtual launch. We'll see how that. Yeah, come and join us. It could be really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, having a look at the indigenous project. I spent a bit of time this afternoon sort of moving through it, and
You'll have to come out.
yeah, I definitely one of those people that would be really drawn to that, Ken, to be honest.
Look, I just came back from there, and I came back, and I've been back and forward quite often, and I took out a cinematographer, and when he came back, he could not function for 2 days.
Wow.
It's that profound. Because when you get out there, you'll see what's really happening. And because you come in, because you'll be welcome, because you come in under my covering. And that's a big responsibility to me because they accept you because of a relationship I've had for many years. But you'll see really what's happening out there. And it just shocked him, you know, and he did a video that he just put up recently. And, you know, so that's the truth when you come out there. So we can make a difference. And that's what's more important. And, you know, if you come out and you find somewhere where you can make a difference, then the opportunities to take photos will be a side salad, which will come out of wanting to help rather than just wanting to take photos. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, we're lucky to have you in this industry, Ken, and thanks for flying the flag and letting your passion to shine as brightly as it has, with, you know, a lot of courageousness and authenticity, you know, no matter what's going on, no matter whose opinions sort of have a go, or you stay true to your form and your beliefs, and that's really inspirational, Ken. And there's not a lot of people in the world that in your position that have the capacity to do that, and I admire you very much for it.
Well, it's a beautiful world we live in. Hey, there's a landscape photographer. We know there's something definitely very special going on.
Yes,
awesome to be able to share that with everybody else then too. So
see you later, guys. See you guys.
All right, catch you later, everybody. See you same time next week. I'm actually going to be away for a couple of weeks, so Paul will be leading everything. I'm going down the Franklin River, so wish me luck, and working on a movie. So I will, leave it over in Paul's capable hands for the next couple of weeks. There may be a break in there. I think Paul will have to make a decision on that, and we'll go from there.